We're talking a Giants win to start this week on the Locked On Giants podcast. David Turner joins me to break it all down, coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family. Your team every day. Patricia Traina here with you, and happy Monday to everybody. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day. And guess what, folks? We have a win. That's right. We have a Giants win, 27-21 in overtime over the New Orleans Saints. We are going to talk about a win, and I am so psyched. I hope I remember how to do this. And of course, joining me as he has every week is David Turner, former NFL scout, former personnel guy. He has been with me every week. He's been with me going back to the Senior Bowl, and his insight has been absolutely, a godsend in helping to break down this New York Giants season and what they're doing. And David, my friend, we have a win.
You sound so like, honestly, you sound so excited, which is awesome to hear in your voice. And it's really great to hear that win come out of your mouth, because last week we were all gloom and doom. And now today we get to talk about a win, and one that was a little surprising, I think, to some people. No, not a lot of people gave them a chance to go down there to New Orleans in that rocking environment and come home with the W. So I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Absolutely. And I'm surprised I still remember how to spell win. I mean, it's been so long. But okay, seriously, I'll put the giddiness aside here because I'm just so happy. But David, let's start off with what we saw, how the Giants changed on offense. Now, just leading up before you answer the question, head coach Joe Judge spoke about how they were going to try and change some different concepts and maybe do things a little bit differently this week to get better production in the red zone, to open up some plays, to get some points on the board. What did you see them do differently than they haven't done yet this season?
Offensively, they seem to run, which was interesting because of the personnel switch ups. Like, some of the stuff they ran today, obviously Tony got, 9 receptions or targeted 9 times and then received 6 of them. Mm-hmm. They ran stuff that kind of benefited him and Ross the most, explosive plays. When they have Shepard in there and Slayton, you see a different play calling. Today, when you had the 2 speedsters out there, 2 of their scores were 1-play drives where a long ball went to Ross and another one went, a long ball went to Barkley, right? Mm-hmm. So, they were looking downfield. Jason was calling downfield stuff, but he was also running 2-man zone concepts. So that means is you'll have someone clear the zone and then a second guy through. And if they don't carry the top end guy with a safety or the corner doesn't run with them, then they shoot the ball to the top end guy going over the top. If they do carry that first guy, the second guy is often wide open. And we saw a lot of that, especially in the third and fourth quarter. We saw a lot of those concepts today too. So, it's not necessarily the rub concept that I talk about all the time, but it's similar because of the way they're running 2 guys through. And they ran a lot of crossing routes today too, which was nice to see, because again, Galladay, I think that's one of his stronger suits, is going across the field and with his strong hands. He targeted 7 times, caught 6 of them, 116, So again, it was really nice to see some of the concepts that they did, but I think personnel forced them into that because they didn't have Shepard and Slayton.
Which brings up the question. I mean, if they knew that this could, well, maybe they did know, I don't know, but why weren't they mixing this in more as they were going along? I mean, I know Sterling Shepard was the hot hand coming out of training camp. And it just seemed like they kind of molded the game plan around what he did well while leaving these other guys out in the cold, so to speak. So what I don't understand is why not mix it a little bit better?
Well, I personally think Shepard can do some of this stuff as well, and hopefully today proved to Jason to have these on the card more and be more predominant with them. And again, look what they did with Barkley today. I loved it. Again, rushing attempts only 13. I wish he would be up around 17, 18 on that. So about 4 or 5 more touches there. But receiving, I mean, they targeted him 6 times. He caught 5 of them, right? I'm sorry. Yeah. And then he had 74 yards there and a touchdown. So, it's I love how they're working him more into the game plan with stuff outside, lining up outside, using his speed that can separate from linebackers and safeties. And again, I think that was just we weren't sure if Barkley was all the way back or not. So we can't really ask too much of him, whatever. But last week we saw, 22 touches combined with the rushing and the receiving. And today, we're seeing, 18. So I think they're getting more comfortable with his health and being able to lean on him a little bit more. And I hope going forward, like I said, he's up around that 18, 19 rushes and then still getting 6 or 7 targets in the pass game. I would love for them to work the screen game better. Honestly, I think with Barkley and Tony and Ross, they really, and Shepard, they can work, I think, more screen game into their concepts, and they would be they would be even more dynamic on offense, because now you don't know if they're going to shoot the ball deep or they're going to run a screen, something short, and that will keep the defense on their heels a little bit more. Now that they came out and they stretched the field so well today, let's work some screen game in, and let's not try a jet sweep with Evan Ingram ever again. Let's take that one and throw it in the trash. How about that?
Did you see that play coming? I know I was watching and I said, jet screen coming up. And sure enough, I was like,
when they ran him across, I'm like, oh, they're going to run a rub. Because, with the motion, it causes almost an automatic rub if the backside receiver just does a quick in route or slant or something. He rubs on the coverage. So I'm like, oh, they're going to move Evan across, rub him, and they're down by the goal line, throw it to him. He can stretch over the line and get it no matter what, right? Like, here we go. I like this idea when I saw him going in motion. And then they ran the jet sweep with him, and I said some proverbial things that I can't say on your show. And I was baffled at the play calling. I think that's when I text you, because I was just like, what is going on? Like, the play calling on that goal line series to me was just strange. Again, you got Tony, you got Ross, you want to run a jet sweep, you got Barkley, you even got Booker. Like, you got all these people you can run a jet sweep with that know how to do it, that are very good at it. And you choose Evan Ingram to run it with? Come on, Jason. You're better than that.
No prejudice against Evan. We know how you feel about Evan, though.
I'm done with them. I can't. I'm just over Evan Ingram. I can't.
And he had the drop again on 3rd down, but you know what? It didn't hurt them. Thank goodness. But let's talk. Let's keep it positive, because it's still a win. Let's keep it positive. Let's talk about Daniel Jones and the improvement that this kid has shown, because let's face it, he has shown improvement. What are you seeing from him? Where has he taken the biggest step forward? And where does he still have room to grow so far after 4 games?
I think the improvement with him right now is reading defenses. He's doing it pretty well. You don't see a lot of mental mistakes. You see Aaron throws, which is, to me, when I'm watching him, his Aaron throws are often when he's under pressure. He's not moving his arm to different levels, as we call it. It can't just be that over the top perfect throw. Sometimes you got to go to the side, like you see Aaron Rodgers or old school Elway, or the Bernie Kosar sidearm, right? Like, you gotta throw at the pro level from different levels, and that's one thing he's not doing well. But and some of the throws were high today. His footwork, he wasn't setting his feet firm and generating the throw from his feet. So there were a few of those where I was disappointed. But I think he's mentally, the game is slowing down for him. He's not Eli yet, where that game was like molasses. Like Eli could see it all, right? Really slowly. It happened quick, but it was slow for him. I think Jones is slowing down, and that's a good sign. That is a really good sign for the Giants. I mean, he had 402 yards throwing today, so we can't bag on the kid. You know what I mean? He did well. I know he missed 12 passes, but he had some drops. Like you said, Ingram dropped one. I think it counted four or five drops today where he hit the receiver, and the receiver just, was in their hands or on their chest or somewhere. It was in the catch radius, and they dropped him on him. So you add those four more catches, the guy only missed like 8 passes today. And a couple of those were throwaways when he was running for his life, So,
yeah.
And he didn't have a bad game.
No, he didn't. And, the one thing I wish they wouldn't charge against him was that Hail Mary interception at the end of the half. But unfortunately, that does go to his record. So as far as I'm concerned, he had no turnovers. Now, staying with the quarterback, we got to give kudos to the offensive line. No sacks allowed. I think they only gave up 6 quarterback hits. They did a pretty good job. Not bad considering they were on their 4th different starting combination in as many weeks. They're still trying to get these guys, in sync with one another. I mean, some early game issues it looked like with some stunts. I mean, this offensive line with stunts and twists still has problems, but I thought overall, not a bad job by this offensive line. What did you think? I mean, the run blocking was a little but the pass protection was really, really good.
I felt that they did a really nice job. And I'll be honest with you, I thought I didn't understand the Saints game plan on defense when it came late, because you got to get to the quarterback and they stopped sending guys. And I was like, why are you just trying to get there with 4? And they got some twists and stuff from Cam in there. Cam Jordan. But again, I thought the Saints should have been blitzing more with the trouble, with the injuries at receiver, the trouble the offensive line has historically had. If I was Dennis Allen, I would have been bringing more heat. They didn't, which completely helped the Giants game plan. And you know what? Thank you, Dennis, for that. And we'll take it because, not every day we get those kind of things, right? So, but the offensive line did block well today. They struggled on some twists. Like I said, Daniel still got hit 6 times, but for all in all, for what we've seen out of this line and this group, wasn't a bad day. I mean, they got to be able to come off the ball and move some people though, and open up holes for Barkley and Booker and get that run game going. And hopefully in the next few weeks, they'll be able to do that.
All right, Giant fans, we have much more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, if you do a lot of driving like I do, then you need to know about a fantastic new app called Get Upside. When you open an account on Get Upside, you can get up to 25 cents per gallon back every time you fill up at the pump. Over time, that kind of savings adds up. Some people are making as much as $200 to $300 per month in cash back with Get Upside, which not makes it only easy to save, but also gives you multiple cash out options, including PayPal, direct to your bank account, gift cards, you name it, you can get it. And you can get the cash out options at any point. And now for a limited time, when you open an account and use our special promo code Touchdown, you can get a bonus 25% back on your first fill up. So that's 50 cents off on your first fill up once you open an account using our promo code Touchdown. So download the free Get Upside app, use our special promo code. Again, that's Touchdown, and start saving every time you fill your car or truck at the pump. All right. Now, David, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. And I got to admit, I was really surprised by the statistic here. No sacks. And let me just check real quick the game book. No sacks. And the Giants had no quarterback hits. What gives there? Were they just not getting there in time? What did you see as the big thing with them not getting any kind of significant pressure on Jameis Winston?
Well, Jameis got rid of the ball quick. Kamara, was running well early and was, opening up some of the pass play action for Jameis, right? Kamara ended up with 120 yards on 26 carries. So, I mean, he was a workhorse today. Plus, he caught a few balls, I think, as well. So, it's a tough offense to defense. I'm not going to lie. I mean, Sean's done a really good job with that offense, and it's a really tough offense to defense. I just think that our guys didn't have enough time to get there. We rarely blitzed. We were playing a lot of that zone, keep them in front of us type defense that drives me nuts. And it didn't work all the time because there was complete miscommunication in the back end today. I think we saw that. I mean, if you were watching the game, you had to see that the Giants secondary didn't come today. They really weren't there. Even the interception from Bradbury was a missed throw from Taysom Hill. If that was a Winston throw, that ball would have been out and earlier and longer, and we wouldn't have got to that ball. It was an underthrown ball that Bradbury was able to get to. So, for me, I loved what our front did, even though they gave up 120 yards to Kamara. I mean, he's a very tough black to defend. I thought the front really did well. Taysom Hill is a tough runner, put it that way, and hard to tackle. So, I mean, you really got to gang tackle him. And you saw him just go into beast mode on a couple runs where it was just impossible to tackle him. And, that's just how they are. You gotta weather those storms. Kamara and Hill, you gotta weather those storms and try to force them into mistakes. So, we did all right. And again, I'm impressed. It went down to New Orleans and won the game and came back with the W. Am I excited about the tape tomorrow? No. I don't think any player is going to walk into film feeling comfortable tomorrow going, I had 100% great game. Maybe Barkley, obviously Daniel will feel pretty comfortable about it, but everybody else I think is going to be like, man, we could have done better. We left some plays on the field.
Defensively, I mean, where did they, you mentioned the back end of the defense, which, they gave up some big chunk plays here and there, but where did they struggle the most? I mean, can you point to the fact that they didn't have Blake Martinez as the main factor, or was there something else you were seeing?
No, because the front seemed to be in sync. They really did. I mean, the Saints made some blocks. I mean, hell, they get paid to play too. You know what I mean? It's their business. But our front seemed to be in the right spots. So if it was because Blake's not there, the front would look like a mess. But they didn't. They looked pretty consistent up front. It was our back end, our safeties, our corners, our nickels. They weren't checking with each other. They weren't communicating properly. You saw Callaway run down the field twice. I mean, the guy has 2 receptions for 74 yards. One of them was along a 58. We gave up some big plays, and it was because people were out of position and they weren't passing off correctly and they weren't covering their zones. If you're going to play zone coverage, you got to have smart players, because you can't miss a pass off. You can't miss when, who's supposed to carry 1 and who takes 2. And when the crosser comes through your zone, who's jumping that? If you're going to play zone, you have to have very smart players. And today the back end looked a little confused, and that's been something we've seen this season. The back end is looking confused. A couple shows ago, we were talking about the safeties not coming up and filling on the edge and not coming up and filling, in their run lanes. And even that late Taysom Hill run, I thought the safety should have filled that gap because the front slanted. Everybody was taking their gaps, and then the off tackle hole opened up, and there was nobody there. I'm like, where's the safety? That's a safety position to fill that gap. So, again, when I watch the film or when I watch the games, I'm thinking the back end is putting more pressure on the front and to produce and to, show up for them when they need to cover a little bit longer, giving the front some time to get there.
You mentioned the safeties on that big play that Bradbury got beat on. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought he was supposed to have safety help. I don't recall seeing a safety in the picture. Is that what you're talking about when you're talking about, the safeties not being in position?
Well, On that play in particular, I didn't get a good look here on the TV copy, so I would have to watch it again to know if he was manned up. He was looking for safety help, expecting it, I should say. So, and Bradbury's a pretty smart player, so I'm pretty sure someone screwed up there. But yes, that's what I'm saying. It's like when you're a corner, okay, and you're lined up and you're say playing quarters, which is 4 across deep, right? Now you have a certain area. But by playing 4 across deep, seams open up between the two people covering. You have to know if you're going to carry the first receiver to the edge of that seam, or if the safety is supposed to pick them up early so you can stay off and in case they run a double guy through your zone. All right. Now, if you don't know that, then the first guy running down the seam looks like, the corner messed up, but the safety never came over.
So, I mean, is it fair to say that the safeties have been the problem on the back end, or is it a combination of the safeties and corner? Because, I mean,
no, there was a couple corner busts today. Corner busts today where the corner carried his guy wrong, and then Kamara's open in the flat when he should have fell off, and the safety was right there to pick up his guy. So I don't want to go there, but I think the coaching for the secondary needs to be talked to a little bit because they're not in sync. And whether it's the safeties coach or the corners coach or whatever, they need to be talked to because the front 7 looked like they knew what was going on up front. The back end for a few games has not looked like they know what's going on. So again, it's easy to fix. A few extra meetings, a few extra walkthroughs, some film study, some quizzes to make sure they're actually doing it. You can work through this very quickly, very fast, but you have to get them playing consistent because once that back end plays consistent and gives your front one extra count to get there, they'll get home more. I mean, they're Lawrence and Ojolari and those guys up front are Jackson, like they're all working, right? But if you don't give them time to get there, then, they're just working for naught. You got to give them a little time.
Yeah. And it just seems like that back end of the defense has been a consistent problem, if you will, throughout the season. And I'm just surprised that it continues.
Again, it's coached. If you get it, it's so hard to be like completely negative right now on these guys because I hate the way the season is set up with preseason the way it is, and they didn't play a lot. A lot of the starters sat out. Well, now what is this? We just got through week 4. This used to be the quarter mark of the season, right? Now we got an extra game, so I don't know if we really got a quarter mark, but let's call it a quarter mark. You got 1-3. Well, the Patriots a couple years ago won the Super Bowl coming out of the first quarter 1-3. So now it's about what do we see moving forward? In games 5 through 8, what are we going to see? If we see the improvements, then you know what? They taught them. They learned. Here we go. I mean, their division is still very winnable. So it's not like they're out of the race. Even, it's nice to have the one win, but they really could have gone 0-4 and still be in the mix. I mean, that's the reality in the NFC East right now. So, again, Eagles lost today. I think Washington won and Dallas won.
Yeah.
So again, they're in the hunt. They still have a lot of division games left to play to really catch and make it happen for themselves. But playtime's over. And so you and I were talking about it today. Some of the game management from last week, well, I really got on Coach Judge about, I think creeped in today a little bit. It was very vanilla. There was not a lot of emotion. Like I was hoping to see a fiery Coach Judge today, like literally yelling at people, working the refs to get calls, like, throwing a hat. Like I want to see, like, understand the urgency. Where's the sense of urgency? And I didn't see that today. That was disappointing, but they got the win. So, if we were sitting here tonight and they had lost, I'd be really hard about that. I didn't see the passion and the sense of urgency I was hoping to see from Coach Judge and the coaching staff today. They won the game, but they had to go to overtime to get it, and they couldn't do it in regulation. They had a hell of a fourth quarter, scoring 11 points. If they didn't do that, tough day.
All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's show. But first, let me tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. It's called DirecTV Stream, which brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before. That means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part is there's no annual contract, nor do you need to buy any special devices. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. Go to directtv.com to learn more about DirecTV Stream. Again, that's directtv.com. And Giant fans, before we get back to our discussion with David Turner, let me tell you about Built Bar. It's a healthy, low-carb, low-sugar, and high-protein treat that will satisfy your sweet tooth. Choose from 9 amazing flavors, plus the occasional limited-time offering available in nut and nut-free varieties. Visit BuiltBar.com and get 15% off your first order with the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15 at BuiltBar.com for 15% off your first order from BuiltBar.com. They had their first win in the books. They face Dallas on the road next week, big division game. Where did the Giants go from here? What do they focus on? If you're running this team, what do you focus on besides having them work? Because we know how you're a hard-nosed guy. But what do you have them focus on in terms of things to build on, things that came out of this game that they can build on versus the things that still need some work?
Building blocks is, again, the game plan with Barkley and, working some of those concepts, those explosive plays into the game plan more, getting Tony going. Obviously John Ross can give you some explosion, but I really was impressed with a few of those post catch runs after catch, I guess is what's called, that Tony had today. I mean, you saw his jitterbugness, you saw his stop and start, you saw his ability to make people miss in short areas, small confined spaces. So that's something I think they have to absolutely target that young man at least 8 times a game and give him an opportunity to show why he was a first round pick, and then build on Shaq. I mean, Barkley needs to touch the ball more. He needs to run the ball more. I think Rudolph still needs to or get more targets. I would trade Evan Ingram just to force that. Personally, I would Billy Bean it. I really would. I would get rid of the distraction in Evan Ingram and say, here's Kyle Rudolph, meet him and use him. Thank you. But I'm not running the team. So, but that would be my call. I really would. I'm a guy, I've done it to my coaches before when they will not stop doing what they're used to. Mm-hmm. I've cut players, I've traded them, I've gotten rid of them just to make them know that there's other people on the team and then find another way to win. And with that, that's what I would do. But building blocks, I think, again, getting the secondary to communicate better, getting their checks down, maybe simplifying a few of their coverages will help them a long ways. And up front, again, stay consistent with what they did today. I know they didn't have sacks and pressures like we wanted, but I thought they played very disciplined, fun, good football, very fundamental football. They have to get the DBs tackling and they have to get the DBs catching balls. That was something we said last week. They dropped interceptions last week, right? Today, they were not tackling. They were not hitting. They were not laying the wood, and they need to do that. So again, whoever's coaching the DBs, get them out there working, make them hit the Duke, make them catch extra balls, do some tennis ball drills for concentration, get them working, because if they don't pick up their play, next week's going to be a very long game because the Dallas Cowboys they're banged up a little bit, but they have a pretty dang good team, and that quarterback's playing at a very high level right now.
Indeed. I want to go back to the personnel, thing, the personnel issue. You mentioned that you would, if you were running the team, you would maybe force it on the coaches by trading a guy. I've asked this question of people before. I'm going to ask it of you. Is there such a thing as having too many playmakers? I mean, they have Tony, they've got Galladay, when they're healthy, Shepard, Slayton, they have Kyle Rudolph, they've got Saquon Barkley. I mean, do they have too many guys to where they can say, you know what, maybe we need to trim one from the group, and maybe that someone is Evan Ingram, who, by the way, I think is making just a hair over $6 million this year. And then for a team that's strapped salary cap wise, I might add, maybe you make that move to get some of that money back and get you through the rest of the year so you don't have to keep mortgaging the future.
Well, I think Evan's contract is what they would call dead cap money, even if you trade him at this point.
I don't think so. No,
it's not. Okay.
No, he's got a guaranteed, he's on the option year. So he doesn't have any signing bonus. If they were to trade him, the new team would take on, assuming that it was a straight up trade and the new team said, oh, Giants, don't you carry part of it and we'll carry the rest of it. But no, whenever he's traded, the remaining prorated part would be picked up by the new team. Unless
then
there's
I'd
a
get rid of
provision
him.
in there.
I would get rid of him. That makes it more attractive to get rid of him. Send him to Buffalo. I don't care. It's an easy drive up the highway. Or send them to Jacksonville. I hear they're collecting tight ends down there. So, that would be fine too. But, for me, I don't think there's a thing as too many playmakers, because as a personnel guy, you never want your coach coming to you and going, I don't have anybody. We're so depleted. You want to have these injuries like they had today and still, okay, we'll give you Ross and Tony. Here you go. Make it happen, Captain. You know what I mean? Like, that's the answer is personnel. You want to be able, we have the answers here in the building. You don't want to go shopping for answers outside the building. A, they're typically costly, and B, they don't necessarily mesh or fit with your culture right away. So, for me, I always love having a stacked roster and on cut day having tough decisions, because then I know when we get into the season, my coaches have enough to win during the season, each and every game, no matter what the injuries that come. We have competitions at every level, and we go from there. All that is managing players' expectations and egos, which is part of coaching, and they have to figure it out. That there was a quote on the broadcast today about Joe Judge, I guess, was behind Belichick one day complaining about all these guys being injured. And when he was up there in New England with them, and he was like, and Belichick just turned around and said, figure it out. That's your job as a coach. What that word means, A, is teacher, and B, is problem solver. Mm-hmm. You have to solve the problems of injuries and game management and things. You have to be a counselor to their ego and their expectations, but that's what you get paid the big bucks to do. And you teach them the game plan each and every week to go out there and execute it. That's what you get paid the big bucks to do. As a personnel guy, I get paid the big bucks to fill this roster with as much talent as possible and fit it under a salary cap. And when I do that, I've done my job. So you have to take them now and coach them.
Yeah. All right. I mean, sometimes people will say, is there such a thing as too much? Because how do you incorporate them all? But, to be fair, and let me just take a look real quick at the game book here. Jones threw, let's see, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 different targets. Galladay, Tony, Barkley, Ingram, Ross, Rudolph, and Booker. So he spread the ball around just fine. It wasn't like, a few years ago when it was all Odell Beckham Jr. and that was it,
Right.
So, which used to drive me crazy, by the way.
It drove us all crazy. But again, when you have the ego of Odell in your locker room and you don't feed him 12 balls a game and make sure that he's happy at the table. He goes in the locker room and said, well, if you would have worked me more into the game plan, I would have made a difference, blah, 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 blah. And now you got that problem child in there complaining. So you try to keep them fed. I don't think they have the egos with, I mean, Galladay has a little bit of an ego, which I like. Honestly, I like that tough tenacity that I think he brings to it. But Shepard and Tony so far hasn't shown it. John Ross really doesn't have one. Rudolph doesn't have it. Ingram needs to go. So, but, you know, again, I think that they have a good room where they can manage the egos fairly well and manage the expectations fairly well. And honestly, the Giants identity, which it always should have been, which it always should be, is running the dang ball. Run the football. Get off the ball line, move people, and run the football. If you build through the run and that's your identity, and you have Shaq and you got Booker, you got Penny, you got people who can run the ball, throw to your tight ends, hit your receivers, and guess what? You're only going to run about 60 plays a game, right? And if Barkley is getting 20 touches running and another 6, say 5 catching, that's 25. Now you only have 35 more plays, right? You target Galladay and Shepard each 6 times. That's 12. You target Tony 6 times. That's 18. You target Rudolph 4 times. You're at 22, right? Now you only have a handful of plays to hand out to the rest of them, but that's going to be a pretty balanced offense. And, you know, they're not going to know on third down, you're definitely going to Galladay or they're definitely going to Ingram. So they can't, you know, box that in because you're spreading the ball around enough to everybody where you cause problems. I remember back in the day when, Mike McCarthy was the coach over at Green Bay, and they would run so many personnel groups, and I would pull my hair out. I would, and they would run so many personnel groups, and they'd run so many different. And by the end of the first quarter, 9 guys have touched the ball, and you know, you just like 1 or 2 touches here, 1 or 2 touches there. But then by the end of the game, the stars had, you know, their 8 catches or their 7, you know, or their 15 rushes or whatever. But he worked it early in the count, like a pitcher does. He works the corners early in the count to make you guess what he's going to do the rest of the game. And Mike McCarthy would do that all the time. He's doing it in Dallas. I mean, today's game, I watched it a little bit. I think Dak had 9 guys touch the ball in the first half. And it was just like, you know, when 9 guys touched the ball in the first half, in the second half, the playbook's wide open.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was a good first start for the Giants because, like you said, it was a game that I don't think anybody on the outside thought they had a chance of winning. I know I had some significant doubts, but listen, they've restored some of my lost faith in them. Moving forward, they've got a big one coming up next week against Dallas. So before we end the show, just real quick, how are you feeling about next week? I know it's early and we still haven't gone through, you know, to find out about the injury status and whatnot, but how are you feeling about next week against Dallas?
I think it's a heck of a test. I really do. If the Giants are going to have a season because they dropped the game they should have won early in that Thursday night game in Washington, this is really the game they need to steal. And yes, I'm saying steal because right now Dallas is banged up. And you know what? You can go into Dallas, Jerry Jones's world, and get a game. But you're going to have to, you know, again, you're going to have to steal it. It's not going to be easy. Their defense is playing. I think they're number 1 or 2 in takeaways right now. The number 7 guy, Diggs, the corner out of Alabama a couple years ago, has like 3 interceptions or something already. I mean, you know, he's playing well. The Micah Parsons, who should have been the Giants pick, and they blew that, is balling out of control. for Dallas right now. I mean, he's supposed to be the starting Mike linebacker, and he's playing rush end, and he's looking good doing it. So, I mean, he's a heck of a football talent. So, again, and then on offense, I mean, Cooper got hurt, I think, today, but Zeke ran well today. They got a two-headed monster running the ball, and Pollard and Zeke. Lamb and the tight ends are showing up for them. Schultz and I can't remember the other guy's name, Grimm, I think it is, or something like that. But they're showing up in the scorecard and they're making some catches and stuff. So, if Cooper can't go next week, not Cooper, Amari Cooper, then they're going to be down Galloway and Cooper, and they're only going to have Lamb, the tight ends, and Zeke. So again, you're going to be walking into a situation where you got a wounded animal and you gotta put your foot on the neck and end it. If they choose not to, and then they get them later in the season when they're healthy, that's going to be tough because they really have a good receiving core when they're healthy. That's going to be tough. And their offensive line, I believe the guard that got in trouble for bribing the tester is still going to be out. So
Mail Collins, I think it was, right?
Yeah, I think he's still out. So again, you have an opportunity here. Will you seize it? We'll see.
Hopefully they will. Hopefully they will, because you know what? I could get used to talking about wins after a game. They're a lot more fun, as I've always said to people, who say, oh, what's harder, to cover a loss or win? Covering a loss, because where do you start with losses? And whereas with wins, it's a little bit easier because you can see all the good and even the bad things that popped up. And it wasn't a perfect game, this week by any stretch of the imagination, but the mistakes didn't hurt them. They were able to overcome them, which to me was a good sign, because in the past they'd make a mistake and then poof, everything would just kind of fall apart. So that to me was a big step forward. So great always talking with you. Great talking about a win. And we're going to talk again, I know, whether it be this week, next week, but we're going to talk again. People love you on the show. And so until the next time, my friend, we'll catch you later. Giant fans, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, Twitter Tuesday coming up. We have the crossover show on Thursday. And then in between, I'm going to see if I can sneak in another guest here and there in between. So make sure you keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And we will talk to you again tomorrow.